your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all.
皆さん、こんにちは。今回の動画を最後で全部流しますので、その前に少し背景の説明をします。今回の動画は今までこのチャンネルで作った動画の中で最も価値がある動画ではないかと思いますので、ぜひ最後まで見てください。今回皆さんに紹介するインタビューはとても価値があるインタビューです。このインタビューから過去アメリカでどんなことが起きたのか、今アメリカでどんなことが起きているのか、もしこのまま放置してしまうとこれからアメリカでどんなことが起きるのか、また、この世界が共産主義思想を放置してしまうと、今後この世界にどんなことが起きるのかがわかりますので、このインタビューに字幕をつけて皆さんとシェアしようと思いました。ソ連が崩壊した後、共産主義思想もそれと一緒に消えていったと公開されて、世界範囲で国家レベルでの共産主義に対する反省がありませんでした。だから今この世界の多くの国がまた共産主義に向かって進んでいっても、それに気づかない人が多いです。今、アメリカで起きていることは、まさにその共産主義思想の再蔓延になります。このチャンネルでは、アメリカで起きている社会問題についても配信をしています。それらの内容を見て、太平洋の向こう側にこのようなことが起きているということを知って、ただのニュースとして見るのもいいんですが、できればそのようなことが日本で起きないようにするためにどうすればいいのか。また、もしすでに日本でも同じようなことが起きているならどうすればいいのかなどを考えながら見ていただいた方がもっと良いと思います。なぜなら共産主義思想には国境がありません。国境に壁を作ろうが、国は海に囲まれていようが、共産主義はいつでも私たちの国を破壊するように動いているからです。これからの背景の説明がいらない方は、説明欄にある時間軸からインタビューの部分に飛んでください。今回のインタビューに出る主人公は、ソ連の情報機関 KGB のフロント企業である通信社で勤務していたスパイです。しかし、彼が言う KGB のスパイと、我々が考える KGB のスパイのイメージが違います。それについて彼はインタビューで説明をしますので、ここでは詳しく話をしません。今回のインタビューで話をする元スパイの名前はユーリー・ベズメノーフです。彼は1939年生まれて、彼のお父さんはソ連軍の将軍でした。彼は17歳の時にモスクワ国立大学の言語を学ぶ学院に入ってヒンディ語を学びました。その学院はソ連の外交官やスパイなどを育てる学院でした。26歳の時、ロシア通信社に入ってインド支部の記者になりました。彼が通信社に入ってから自分の記者の身分はただのカバーで、ロシア通信社の4分の3ぐらいの人はロシアのスパイであることを知りました。彼のインド支部での主要な任務は情報収集と記者の身分で嘘の情報を流すことです。彼はそこで働いた後、かなり速いスピードで昇進して、ソ連がインドで新しく設立したインドの影響力のある政治家などの情報を収集する部門のナンバー2になりました。彼がそこで働いた後、ソ連がどれほどひどいことをやってるかを知って、そこで継続的に仕事をすることが嫌になり、そこから逃げることを計画しました。ある日、彼が自分の同僚と一緒に映画を見に行った時、ドアに入る直前に自分はチケットを買い忘れたと言ってチケットを買いに行きました。当時、スパイが亡命することを防ぐために必ず複数人以上で団体行動しないといけないというルールがありましたが、彼がチケットを買い忘れたと言った時に同僚は分かったと言って先に映画館に入ってきました。彼が一人になった後、着替えて髭とカツラをつけて事前に用意した偽物の身分証明書を使ってギリシャの旅行団体に入ってギリシャに行きました。ギリシャに着いた後、彼は現地のアメリカ大使館に行って亡命申請をしました。当時、アメリカは KGB のスパイが亡命したと報道しましたが、ソ連は彼はただの一般職員であると言って彼の身分を認めませんでした。当時、アメリカはソ連と摩擦が起きることを避けて、 彼がカナダに亡命するようにアレンジをしました。彼がカナダに行った後、トロント大学で2年間政治学を勉強して、カナダのメディア CBC で働いて、ソ連と東ヨーロッパ向けの放送の仕事をしてました。彼がそのメディアで3年間働いた後、彼はそのメディアの仕事を辞めました。彼の説明によると、当時の首相ピエール・トルドー、今のカナダの首相ジャスティン・トルドーのお父さんピエール・トルドーは、ソ連の圧力に耐えられず、彼を CBC のポジションから下ろしたようです。その後、彼は独自でメディアの仕事をしたり、顧問になったりして、1980年代、ロサンゼルスに引っ越しをして、アメリカでも多くの演説を行って、アメリカ人向けに共産主義の邪悪性について発信しました。今回のインタビューは彼が1984年、アメリカで受けたインタビューで、彼のインタビューの中で一番広く拡散されているインタビューです。彼は当時そのインタビューでアメリカの国民に向けて発信をしましたが、当時聞くとあんまり何を言ってるかがわからないと思った人も多かったはずです。またその後、レーガンが大統領になってソ連と冷戦を始めてソ連が崩壊しましたので、彼がそのインタビューで話をしていた一部の予言が実現しませんでした。しかし、今アメリカで起きていること、または世界の他のところで起きていることを見て、もう一回このインタビューを見直すと、彼が言っていたことがよくわかります。背景の説明はここまでにします。では、どうぞ。
Mr. Bezmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer.He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was the, and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life.He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result? The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black. You still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place and
Yes.
who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people. And the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. Obviously they will join the links of dissenters, dissidents. Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So basically America is stuck with demoralization, and unless, even if you start right now, here, this minute, you start educating new generation of Americans, it will still take you 15 to 20 years to turn the tide of ideological perception of reality back to normalcy and patriotism. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world, that the process will go that fast. Your leftists in the United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. He will go to Moscow to kiss the bottoms of new generation of Soviet assassins, never mind. He will create false illusions that the situation is under control. Situation is not under control. Situation is disgustingly out of control. Most of the American politicians, media, and educational system trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in the state of war, undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system. And the initiator of this war is not Comrade Andropov, of course. It's the system. However ridiculous it may sound, the world communist system or the world communist conspiracy, whether I scare some people or not, I don't give a hoot. If you are not scared by now, nothing can scare you. But you don't have to be paranoid about it. What actually happens now, that unlike myself, you have literally several years to live on unless the United States wake up. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect to, unless you want to live in Antarctica with penguins. This is it. This is the last country of freedom and possibility.
Okay, so what do we do? What is your recommendation to the American people?
Well, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is, of course, there must be a very strong national effort to educate people in the spirit of real patriotism, number one. Number two, to explain them the real danger of socialist, communist, whatever, welfare state, big brother government. If people will fail to grasp the impending danger of that development, nothing ever can help United States. You may kiss goodbye to your freedom, including freedoms to homosexuals, to prison inmate. All this freedom will vanish, evaporate in 5 seconds, including your precious lives. The second thing, the moment at least part of United States population is convinced that the danger is real, they have to force their government. And I'm not talking about sending letters, signing petitions, and all this beautiful, noble activity. I'm talking about forcing United States government to stop aiding communism. Because there is no other problem more burning and urgent than to stop the Soviet military-industrial complex from destroying whatever is left of the free world. And it is very easy to do. No credits, no technology, no money, no political or diplomatic recognition, and of course no such idiocy as grain deals to USSR. The Soviet people, 270 millions of Soviets, will be eternally thankful to you if you stop aiding a bunch of murderers who sit now in Kremlin and whom President Reagan respectfully calls government. They do not govern anything, least of all such complexity as the Soviet economy. So basic, two very simple, maybe two simplistic answers or solutions, but nevertheless they are the only solutions. Educate yourself, understand what's going on around you. You are not living at the time of peace. You are in a state of war. And you have precious little time to save yourself. You don't have much time, especially if you are talking about young generation. There's not much time left for convulsions to the beautiful disco music. Very soon it will go, just overnight. If we are talking about capitalists or wealthy businessmen, I think they are selling the rope on which they will hang very soon. If they don't stop, if they cannot curb their unsettled desire for profit, and if they keep on trading with the monster of the Soviet communism, they are going to hang very soon. And they will pray to be killed, but unfortunately they will be sent to Alaska probably to manage industry of slaves. It's simplistic. I know it sounds unpleasant. I know Americans don't like to listen to things which are unpleasant. But I have defected not to tell you the stories about such idiocy as microfilm, James Bond type espionage. This is garbage. You don't need any espionage anymore. I have come to talk about survival. It's a question of survival of this system. You may ask me, what is it in for me? Survival, obviously, because unlike, as I said, I am now in your boat. If we sing together, we'll sing beautifully together. There is no other place on this planet to defect to.